As MotoGP 2025 prepares to resume from its summer break with the Austrian Grand Prix, here on the Race MotoGP podcast, we've been compiling our wish lists for the rest of the season. But before we get onto that, some news which we expect to take shape a little bit more during the Austrian Grand Prix weekend at the end of this week. Guenther Steiner and his links to Tech3. We've been talking about this quite a lot during the season so far, Simon and Val. It does seem like things are pretty close to fruition. So, Simon, do you want to run us through what the current state of play is and what we're expecting to happen next?
So, former F1 team boss and Drive to Survive star Guenther Steiner has basically put together he's leading a proposal to buy a percentage, we don't know what size of percentage yet, of satellite KTM team Tech3 from Hervé Poncharal. The last kind of big update we got from this was when we sat down with Hervé in Aragon. And Hervé being Hervé basically told me everything I asked him because he's good like that, and admitted at that point that he didn't know what size of a percentage that this kind of conglomerate was going to purchase, whether it would be a full buy, whether it would be a controlling stake, whether they'd buy their way in and still leave him in control of it, or where his role was going to fit in kind of post-takeover and what was going to happen to him. So we're still waiting to hear those details be clarified, but it sounds like it is at least moved forward now to this extent where some sort of a deal has been done. And I'd imagine even if we don't find out something official in the next kind of 10 days, if I grab Hervé for a coffee, then we'll find out something unofficial, because he likes to tell us these sort of things.
Yeah, when you did sit down with him for that chat about this and everything else going on with Tech3 and with KTM as well through all the kind of turmoil over the winter, he didn't hold back on anything really. If you're part of the Race Members Club on Patreon, that whole video is there uncut from June. If you're not part of the Race Members Club on Patreon, 90% off your first month at the moment if you head there. So yeah, very unsubtle plug, Matt. Well done. Speaking of other things we've done, we did a full video on KTM's plight and Steiner and Tech3 on our MotoGP YouTube channel, which you might be watching this on. That was back in June as well. And that includes a section where Scott Mitchellmile from the Race's F1 team chats about his life, sometimes being slapped by Steiner, but their interactions over the years. And just kind of getting beneath the Steiner caricature as well, because obviously, Val, you like me, you've got a slight foot in F1 as well. Actually, it takes up an awful lot of our time. Steiner is known to the masses through Drive to Survive and loads of swearing, but his CV is so much more than that. You know, he's come through a strong rallying background. He was part of Jaguar and actually maybe one of the more functioning parts of the Jaguar F1 team. He was at Red Bull Racing in its early F1 days, set up the Red Bull NASCAR program. And the fact that the Haas F1 team exists at all is basically down to him and the way that whole deal with Ferrari, which was pretty much unprecedented in the modern era, came together. He's achieved a lot, hasn't he? He's a serious player coming into the MotoGP world.
Or he is a credible motorsport managerial figure. I think if you're watching, well, not necessarily Drive to Survive, I guess, because Drive to Survive does show him get to doing some of his, team boss stuff, etc. But if you're just sort of vaguely familiar with the name, you might think that this is the sort of guy like a title sponsor who's come in and throwing his money around and sort of throwing his weight around, or like a team owner who isn't actually hands-on involved but just makes loud proclamations. And that is not Steiner. Steiner is a motorsport management specialist. You can't really be not competent at your job doing the job that he was doing in F1 for as many years as he was doing it. And he is, first and foremost, he isn't the colorful figure that you see on TV. He is an F1 team boss with everything that entails. And it's a very, very complicated job. There's a lot more moving pieces than there will be in a MotoGP role of the sort, because Autosport were the ones who have broken the story that Steiner will slowly but surely take over the reins of the program from Hervé Poncharal, and that Steiner is bringing money from an investment company called Apex, which seems already connected to racing somehow, including in the Alpine Formula One team investment, but which I have to admit I don't know very much about, because, as you know, just kind of investment companies and venture capital stuff isn't really my thing. Not really my huge area.
And
of
also,
I'm not
everyone has a stake in the Alpine F1 team, pretty much. In their ownerships.
Yeah, I have some.
Hervé Poncharal probably owns a bit of it.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm just warning.
Davide Breville probably does.
You'd hope he got something. for wasting that year or however long it was.
Who ironically is the Trackhouse boss, who is now the Red Bull Racing NASCAR effort. Just because everything in motorsport's circular, you know?
Yeah. Everyone's a sibling. Carry on, Val, sorry.
I think actually it's really nice to see Steiner also, because it's going to help him move away from the sort of caricature, the figure that he's become also after the termination with Haas, because you sort of assess him versus his successor Ayao Komatsu at Haas and how he's done there, and maybe that comparison hasn't initially been so favorable because the team has seemed a little healthier under his, under Komatsu. At least that's been my impression. And I'm not very often in the F1 paddock, but I'm fairly positive I've attended sessions with both of those men, and I am very familiar with their driver choices. But it's, as you mentioned, Steiner has a very long history outside of even Haas. He kind of genuinely deserves a chance to run a ship that isn't the behemoth that is a Formula One team. Haas is the simplest F1 team. It's the smallest in many ways because it takes so much of what it's allowed to take from Ferrari. It is the closest F1 has to a customer team, which is what he will have here at Tech3. But it is still, the amount of moving parts, the amount of budget, the amount of marketing commitments, etc. It's a completely different world. And what this will bring Steiner closer to is, I guess, his time running. He ran a World Rally Championship team 2 decades ago. I think that'll be the closest. I think it brings him back more to that kind of route. And it's not to say that MotoGP is simple. It's not to say that running a MotoGP team is easy, especially when you have no prior experience in this kind of paddock, in this kind of environment. But it is almost a greater chance for us to see his real imprint and his real effect than it would be in F1 with the amount of moving parts. And I think it'll be very interesting. I think it's just also interesting to see how a person coming in fully from the outside of the paddock will structure decisions. I just want to know, because usually, it's the same people taking MotoGP leadership roles. It's either former team bosses who've already done 3 gigs or former riders who have just become team bosses. It's not somebody coming in from the left. I think Massimo Rivola is the only, on my mind, the only real outlier, and he's flipped his team. And he's done good.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, he's flipped his team. It always seems to me like, from someone that kind of watches the business side of F1 more than the actual racing side of F1, it does seem like Steiner has a bit of a bad rap because of a really difficult set of circumstances that he found himself in. Like most team bosses don't suddenly lose their title sponsor to international war crime sanctions. He came through, pretty unusual circumstances.
Yeah, I think there's that element as well. There's a lot of turmoil at Haas for various reasons. I think the bigger thing, and this is something that Scott alludes to in the video we did about this as well, Gene Haas, the team owner, has got a bit more interested in the team again, basically since Steiner. Those two things aren't linked. That is basic coincidence. There's a period where Haas was struggling to see the point in him owning an F1 team, and that showed in the commitment to it, the resources and the direction, and that was the tail end of Guenther's era, really. Ayao Komatsu, I think, has done a great job, but he's also had a better structured team with a more interested owner. He's wearing fewer hats in the role than Steiner was, and so Steiner's used to kind of trying to do about 7 jobs at once. There might only be 3 jobs to do at once, relatively speaking, running a customer MotoGP team. In a more stable situation, that could suit him really well. I think it's going to be fun.
No, I agree. I think what you point out is right, but it also is very interesting to me if Steiner's philosophy of trying to avoid taking rookie drivers for a sort of startup operation, which this isn't. He's going to get a fully MotoGP ready team. And he's going to be, I think Tech3 and teams like Tech3 will always be at the beck and call of manufacturers when it comes to who they sign first and foremost, but they still will get some sort of say of it. We know that Haas was really historically consistently reluctant to sign rookies, and the one time it did, which was the Mick Schumacher Nikita Mazepin pairing, it was, as you say,
terrible.
Well, it was terrible. It did not work. Although I think you will find a lot of schools of thought on whether Steiner's ultimate lack of faith in Schumacher was correct or not. That's a whole different discussion for a whole different podcast. But just for our MotoGP audience, that is a big, big discussion, and that might be the first thing that comes up if you ask an F1 fan about Guenther Steiner and the assessment of Guenther Steiner's tenure in F1. But Steiner, Haas being the sole American Formula One team, he would always, every year, he would go up in front of the media and have to answer questions about, okay, so why aren't you taking an American rookie? And he'd be like, well, nobody's ready, but also we're just not in a good position to take a rookie driver. It's just not where we are. And it feels like under him, Haas always felt like it never would get there. Like it was too preoccupied with maintaining a certain level of respectability, not going through those growing pains. It was ambitious in that sense, but it's also, it's F1. You can't really afford a season lost, like absolute lost, without, especially in the financial situation that the team was in, and especially because Haas didn't come in under Liberty. It came in a little bit before, when Formula One teams were going bust just like that. It's interesting how much of that will survive, how much of those traits will survive going into the MotoGP side of things.
Yeah, I'd summarize what you said there was just like a kind of reign of ultra pragmatism in terms of decisions, basically, which I think is probably a good trait in motorsport for staying around a while anyway.
Tech3 has the most pragmatic lineup it's had in years, right?
Yeah, without a doubt.
If you can call Maverick Vinales ever a pragmatic choice for somebody.
He is, if you want someone to help develop your bike and win the occasional race.
Yeah.
He's not a title contender. And he freely admits that, but he's a damn good rider to have in your team at any point. I think anyone in MotoGP would have, there's no team in MotoGP you couldn't realistically see Maverick moving to next year if he was a free agent, and because he basically slots in everywhere. He's that kind of, so yeah.
Yeah, on your third bike that you don't have to count on too much would be my take.
But even then, if you were choosing between Maverick Vinales and Luca Marini for for HRC Honda, Maverick still has.
Yeah, okay, I see what you mean.
You know what I mean? He fits everywhere in some way, depending on who else is there at the minute. And
absolutely.
This is, I think the running order means you'll see it first, but we're recording a Rider Market episode for the YouTube channel shortly in this recording session. And I think Simon's just given us a preview. He's going to suggest that Maverick Vinales signs for everyone, which seems more like a Val take to me, but there you go.
I mean, I don't know if we'll get to this in the video, so I'm going to throw it in here. There has been extensive rumors over the last kind of 2 weeks that BMW World Superbikes have went really heavily after Maverick to replace Toprak. Yeah. Because again, he fits everywhere.
Do you think Tech3 is going to stay a KTM team, though? I'm just thinking, obviously, it's going to, Steiner will inherit these riders right now, Anina Bastianini and Vinales, but the future's a bit more fluid in terms of who it ties up with and who it gets, surely.
I think KTM's on more solid footing than they've been on for the last 18 months. And the bike is still the third best bike in the championship, even though they've had no money to do any development for a year. The new regulation cycle is going to help them massively because it's going to be something of a level playing field. And I just don't see anywhere else for Tech3 to go.
Yeah,
I think Dorna are still in some way or shape or form committed to the every factory has 2 satellites thing.
Yeah.
And although with 5 instead of 6 factories at the minute, at least that's going to be a bit more complicated to make happen. It's still, it basically means one factory, Ducati, is going to run 2 satellites and everyone else is going to run one each. And in that reality, I don't see anywhere, I don't see them anywhere to go. Plus, being a KTM team has the massive, massive, massive benefit of coming with a huge sponsor that just slots in.
Yeah, true.
You don't have to do sponsorship acquisition for a title sponsor when you're a KTM satellite team.
I think it's a question of even if for some reason you suspect that the KTM will be bad in 27, it's for the health of the team in the short term, in the medium term, it is better to be second in command at KTM, second in line rather than third in line at Honda or Yamaha, fourth in line at Ducati. I mean, let's see how the Aprilia situation evolves also, I guess, because I don't know if there have been any conversations about whether Trackhouse is definitely staying as an Aprilia customer, but I would imagine so.
I don't think there's anyone unhappy with their satellite teams at the minute. Yeah. Especially you'd think of places where Tech3 would kind of naturally land. They've missed the boat with Yamaha.
Yeah.
If we were having this conversation a year earlier, then there would be a viable case for them to become a Yamaha satellite team. But Pramac have slotted in there really nicely and are doing a good job. So I think that door is closed. Honda, Lucio Cecchinello will be a Honda team indefinitely, I think, because of the arrangement that they have. And it sounds like that link's going to get even stronger as well in the coming seasons with the Castrol tie-up. So, realistically, do you want to be a third-tier Ducati team like Gresini? Not really.
You can afford that if you have the best bike on the grid, but otherwise it's...
Yeah, exactly. So no, I see that as being pretty solid. And also, like, from a perspective of this investment group that Guenther Steiner's heading up the bid from, you why would you make big dramatic changes in the next few seasons? Because in theory, this company is buying in. They're an investment company. They're buying into the team to make a profit, which means they're not going to keep it forever. And there's going to be a big change coming. That's what they're betting on. That we're going to see some of this Liberty Magic that hit F1 hitting MotoGP. And MotoGP teams are going to be worth more in 5 years' time than they are today. So why make big sweeping changes that might affect the balance of things whenever you could just kind of remain steady for the time being, sign another 5-year contract, and then see how much your team's worth at the end of it?
And see if the landscape has changed massively manufacturer-wise when the 2027 rules come in and everyone wants to do a massive shuffle. Right, time for your wish lists for the rest of the season, you two. We've been a little bit negative about the 2025 season, which I think is fair enough given we haven't got a title fight. It's a great story watching Marc Marquez show what he could properly do after the 5 painful years. But championship fights are fun. We'd quite like one. Overtaking is fun. We'd like more of it. We're not going to be pessimistic. You might have really pessimistic wishes, but I'm going to attempt to make this an unpessimistic episode. I will rule on the likelihood of your wish happening as well. If you're watching this on Patreon in the Race Members Club, listening to it or listening to it on Patreon. We're in too many mediums now. I'm getting confused. I write everyone a letter. If I'm writing you a letter on Patreon, feel free in the comments on this episode to stick your wish lists for the rest of the season on there. At the end of the year, we'll revisit yours and ours and talk some nonsense about them. Val, you can go first with your first wish for the rest of the 2025 MotoGP season.
I want to see the Yamaha V4 racing, regardless of how competitive it is.
Ooh.
No, I mean, it's not like a wild card's fine. I would like to make that clear. But yeah, I otherwise, what are we even doing here? I think it has to hit the track in a competitive, some sort of competitive state before the season is out. Ideally, fairly early before the season is out. And if it's not fast enough to actually make an impact on the race's order, so what? I just think first of all, it would be very cool for us because we'd be able to get a lot of data on it, get a lot of comparison on it, be able to, assess where the project is, how much time they still need to bring it to at least a baseline minimum level for 26. Because obviously a 2026 introduction, as much as Yamaha higher-ups are dancing around it, is everybody's express wish and desire.
Yeah.
So as long as they can get it anywhere in the ballpark. I mean, they say that the faster bike of the two will race in 26. I do not believe that. That makes no sense to me. I think, okay, it makes some sense to me, but I think ideally, because you're planning for a V4 future in 27 anyway, that seems clear. If it's anywhere near, then you want to give yourself the extra year of working primarily only on V4 technology rather than splitting your efforts between the 3 fronts as they're doing right now of, current inline 4, current V4 for these regulations, and then the V4 for the 2027 regulations. It's going to be a difficult balancing act because if you bring it in at the start of 26, for example, and it's not very competitive, and then Fabio Quartararo is giving you some real bad quotes in every end of day media session.
Doesn't sound
Fabio
like
is,
him.
He is aware that this is probably, the for the best, especially for with the V4, it is the most important. But he is also Fabio.
He's
been
the guy moaning about needing more power. He can't say a word about the development process of the V4.
He can and he will. He can and he will.
He does. We know this, and with reason, given that no other the ratio of talent versus quality of bike has not been so skewed for any other rider on the grid since he won the championship,
or potentially ever in MotoGP.
Oh, that's a column.
I mean,
just summarize all of MotoGP history quickly, Val.
Yeah, that sounds fun. That sounds like definitely worth doing.
I mean, Valentino Rossi on a Ducati would argue.
No.
No.
The same Valentino Rossi who was basically neck and neck with Nicky Hayden that second season. That Valentino Rossi.
No, I'm saying that Valentino Rossi had more talent than the bike at the time.
No, of course. Okay, yes, but I'm not saying peak talent. I'm saying like talent accessible in that moment in time, which I think I've stepped into it potentially here. Anyway, let's forget about this.
This is a topic
quickly.
For a different day, but actually, I kind of agree with Val. I don't think Rossi wasn't exactly reaching his highest heights during those 2 seasons, was he? But anyway,
I think Fabio is still peak Fabio at Yamaha.
Yes, completely.
That's the crux of my argument. Not that Fabio Quartararo is greater than Valentino Rossi. I'm not saying that. Please don't take it that way.
Next, Val, give us your thoughts on Sepang 2015 to really twist the knife.
Fantastic.
You know what Sepang 2015 needs? More French involvement.
Anyway,
another
V4.
Passionate fan base. Anyway, sorry, Val. V4s.
The V4, it'll be would be good to see Augusto Fernandez roll out in it in one of the wild cards. It'll be good to see the lap time. It's probably a pipe dream at this point, but it would be good to have it actually race some other bikes, like as in not.
Yeah. Okay,
it's not so far back that it's like actually at least taking on other test riders is what I mean.
This for me has sold your argument basically, because I was going to say, do they need to race it? Because that's great for us to see, but if they've got private testing going on, they can run it at the Misano test. I'd love to see it run at the Misano test to at least get some comparable lap times. I was like, do they need to race it? And I was like, no, they need to see if this bike can race other bikes, because Yamaha spent years building a bike that is gloriously fast all by itself, and then when another bike turns up and you can't run your ideal line, it's something your lead rider just rants about. So I think I see your logic, Val. I'd love to see that bike on a MotoGP grid with Yamaha learning and showing us something before this crucial season. Simon, do you think the chances of this actually happening are particularly high? I feel like the V4, even turning up in like group tests, still remains something that keeps being hinted at in conversation, and then it gets to Yamaha and they just go, no, not yet, not going to happen yet.
I can see a reality that Val's going to hit here. The timeline that I see, so looking at the way that we've seen this timeline, right? I think Yamaha have kind of built out a timeline for us where, first of all, they refused to say anything about the bike existing. Then they confirmed that there was a V4. Then the riders were allowed to talk about the V4. Then they released a little bit of photo and video and audio of the V4. I think the next logical step now is that the bike will appear at Misano at the post-race test, where we will all get to see it. And then for me, the next logical conclusion of that is that Augusto Fernandez races it in his Motegi wildcard at a track where they've probably done, or we know they've done quite a bit of testing with it already, where there's data, where there's, gearbox ratios already designed for it, et cetera, et cetera. I'd be quite surprised if it doesn't appear at Motegi. I think that's the logical conclusion of it. However, I think there's also a possibility that Motegi being Motegi, it's going to rain all weekend. Yeah. Augusto's going to be really good in the wet. He's going to finish like P8 in the race, and we're going to have absolutely no idea how good the bike actually is.
But Val will be really happy that Augusto Fernandez has got an 8th place.
I would just be happy Augusto Fernandez is on the grid.
He's going to go. Yeah, he's going to go P1 in the rankings and stuff like that. It's going to be. It's going to be.
He's a good wet weather rider, so
He is.
Yeah. Okay, so in terms of likelihood of this happening, I started out quite low, just like for the same reason Simon highlighted there, with Yamaha having initially denied it even existed. That time frame, the fact that a Motegi wildcard follows the Misano test so closely, it's quite neat, isn't it? I reckon 70% chance that will happen. But as for whether it actually continues racing into 2026, as logical as that really should be, this is Yamaha and engines. I'm just, need to see it. Right, Simon, what is first on your wish list for the rest of the season?
I want Marc Marquez to win the championship as soon as possible.
100% done.
I want him to win at Misano. Which is statistically possible, but it means that Alex basically, if Alex misses all 4 rounds, if he doesn't score in all 4 races, which is a stretch, but it is
the worst
possible.
Is doing a lot of heavy lifting there.
I think we've seen a few glimpses this year so far of Mark being willing to kind of sacrifice race results to have good fun in races, where he's like clearly had so much more pace than everyone else, but he's made it interesting. And I want to see him win the title and then be champion and not have to worry about winning the title, so that he can actually like start entertaining us a bit, putting on a bit of a show in races, because the potential is there. I don't want us to get to Phillip Island with the title still on the line, for him to do that thing he did in 2017, where we had an amazing race for like 25 of the 27 laps, and then he just cleared off and won by 4 seconds. I want to see him in the fight until the end of the race. And I think that he enjoys the battle enough that is actually possible, and that we might actually get a bit of entertainment value out of the last races of the year if he's not concentrating on winning a championship.
Well, I had something along similar lines. I was like, we need a Mark race that's Coda 21, basically, but on the current bike. Coda 21, I think that's the right year. It's the one where he, for some reason, whatever happened at the start, went to the very back and then fought through. And you kind of want to see what would happen if Mark was sent to the back at the start of a race not at a very Mark heavy track and in normal conditions, but also not in a too Mark unfavorable tracks, like a track where you can overtake, but it's not super easy.
Yeah, a track mid-range Mark track.
Yeah, a track which spikes from tire pressure. I'd like to see how many laps can he actually do this for.
Indonesia, basically.
Because nobody can follow, right? Except for Mark, who apparently can sit behind another bike for however many laps he wants, and then not lose any performance, and then go through and then just continue running super high pace. It seems to be not a problem for him. I think that would be the cleanest lab experiment we would have of, okay, how much have you actually got this season? Please show it to us. How much is actually there? How much are you just sort of pace managing races and just leaving everything in reserve for the final laps to then clear away by 2 or 3 seconds? Like, show us what you've got if you actually have to overtake 16, 15 riders in normal conditions. Where are you going to end up? What is the pace going to look like? I think that would be a lot of fun.
Wasn't there a 125cc race towards the end of his title-winning season there, where he started from the pit lane or something, and it was just ludicrous how quickly he came through that?
There was one where he crashed on the sighting lap.
That might be it.
Started from the back. The other benefit for me of this is that hopefully with the title decided, it then convinces Alex Marquez to race Mark like he's not Mark.
Yeah.
And just be a bit more risky around Mark, like we've seen him be with other people over the last few races. And maybe, Mark is faster than him, and Alex doesn't make these moves on Mark because Mark's faster than him, like he keeps telling us. But maybe if Mark kind of leads him on a bit, it'll convince Alex to be a bit of a lunatic, and that'll just be good value too. I'd love to see Alex kick Mark's ass in a race.
When he said kick,
genuinely love to see him. I mean, we've still got Sepang to come, and that's an Alex strong track.
That is, yeah.
Literally kick.
Exactly, yeah.
Exactly.
Appropriate.
But I genuinely would really like to see Alex just destroy Mark in a race this year at some point as well. I think it would be good for that kind of drawing a line onto that narrative of this season as well.
Yeah, that I would give that like a 5% chance of happening on absolute merit. What I can see, not sadly, because I like the sibling storyline, but sadly for the spectacle, I can see Mark doing Alex a few favors until.
I really hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, and that'll feel a bit contrived. I love their relationship, but I don't want to see it kind of steering a world championship motorsport series to that extent. Well, but I think until a Marquez Brothers 1-2 is firmly secure in the championship, and I think Pecco Bagnaia will help that by continuing to have the season he's had so far, I think it will still be a little bit vulnerable to those two just racing in ways that ensure a Marquez 1-2 is going to happen in the championship. And then hopefully they go crazy.
I think Mark would try to put his thumb on the scale on that one and try to ensure that Alex comes home second in the championship. I mean, and I say that as somebody who's on the record as caring 0.0% about second in the championship. That's not.
Oh yeah.
It's not a thing, but they would like it. I'm sure it would be quite nice for them to end the season that way. And I do expect that if the title gets sewn up very early, then we'll see a hint or two of that outcome being pursued.
Yeah. So other than Alex kicking Mark's ass on merit somewhere, which I've given very low percentage chance of happening, I think basically 100% chance of Mark clinching the championship at a very early stage, Mark then having a load more fun, Mark then helping Alex a bit too much, and then those two go nuts at each other at some point towards the end of the season. And if Pecco, I wonder how much Ducati might care about a championship 1-2 with the factory team. Probably not as much as the Marquez family cares about a championship 1-2. Probably definitely more than Pecco cares about being second in the championship, because I imagine that means 0 to him.
And also having Mark and Pecco 1 and 3 in the championship with Fermin Aldeguer as Alex's teammate will be enough to ensure that they win constructors, teams, and rider championship, which is something they do care about.
Right, Val, back to you for your next wish for the rest of the season.
It's a boring one. I want Fermin Aldeguer to settle down and Ayagura to get out of his funk, and I want to see like the real level now. I think we're past the sort of rookie betting in stage. This is kind of the moment in the season where I want to see what those guys actually are on a day-to-day basis as MotoGP riders for the future. That means no injuries. That means hopefully fewer clumsy crashes out of good positions in races. I know they're rookies, but you want to see what it will look like for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And because obviously at this point, with Ayagura having had a recent rough run of form, people seem to be forgetting how good the start of the season is. And with Fermin, it's hard to say whether he's like settled down or just caught a bad run of races, but there's still clearly things to work on. I don't think we've seen quite the same lightning fast late race speed that we've seen in some of the earlier rounds of this season. I think qualifying still needs to come along quite a bit. It's very difficult to be a rookie in MotoGP, but they are also being talked about, I think, moment to moment in ways that don't necessarily tell us very much about who they're going to be, about what teams should do start to think for 27, about what future prospects are for both in terms of factory rides, etc. I mean, they're two very, very exciting, very interesting riders, but I want to see a MotoGP length proof of concept rather than this round by round thing of like, ooh, well, this was a lot, or ooh, this was not good at all. I want to be able to establish a baseline level of understanding of what's going on.
I mean, Fermin is having the textbook super fast talent rookie season, isn't he? Where he's just really, really quick and really, really dumb. And I think he'd agree with that assessment. That's kind of his assessment on it too, that he keeps making silly mistakes, and that's all part of the rookie learning curve. But as the rookie learning curve goes, it gets to a point where you have to stop making some of those mistakes. You know, we will by the end of this year, we will go to circuits where he is no longer a rookie, essentially, because by the time we reach Sepang, Barcelona, he's been there before in a MotoGP bike. He's not a rookie anymore per se. You know, he's done more races already than some people did in their rookie season not that long ago. So it is getting to the point where there's less excuse for them.
Yeah.
And where he has to start kind of delivering on some of the promise that he shows every week, I think. I think that Agura's problem has been the injury at Silverstone. I think that has dented his performances more than we probably anticipated, given that it wasn't that severe an injury at the time. Or it didn't seem to be that severe, but it has obviously dented his confidence to an extent, and just things haven't quite been the same since, which is unfortunate for him because it's happened as the bike has improved.
Yeah.
And he's kind of been left, in that situation where the bike is better than he is at the minute. But I think he'll find it again. I'm curious to see what a home race does for him, because that can be a bit of a make or break thing. A lot of people get to their home round and they're suddenly amazing. And it might just be what he needs to get himself kind of back on form for the end of the season.
Could flip though, couldn't it? You see both sides of that. It could be like too much pressure on yourself and your home race. And
don't really think he's the type though.
No, you're right.
He's one of those people who puts a massive amount of pressure on himself all the time.
Yeah.
It seems, he's constantly Mr. Miserable, unhappy with his own performances. So I don't think being, unhappy with his own performances in front of a home crowd is going to particularly change that.
We might just find out if he's on the circuit PA at any point from native speakers that he's even more furious with himself in Japanese than we realised in English.
I mean, based on the length of his English debriefs versus the length of his Japanese debriefs, I think that's probably the case.
Yeah, understandably. I've really enjoyed both these two being around this year. Val, we mocked you for your Aldeguer enthusiasm when he was having his Moto2 wobble last year, but he's proved that what Ducati saw was real, I would say. Yeah. He's had textbook rookie season in terms of, oh, great, oh, shunt, oh, what was that? Agura's had the other kind of textbook that goes, bright start, and then a crash and a wobble, and then you see what happens next. I take your point, Val. They've both got to prove something more sustainable now. I feel like we've had a generation that we've now learned everything there is to know about. We know which riders of the kind of late 2010s, early 2020s arrivals don't transfer well between bikes, don't have a lot of variation in their game, aren't consistent enough. We know which of that lot are going to win titles. It's not actually that many. Agura and Aldeguer, we don't have the full data set yet, but they've both done really, really, really good things. Yeah, you can't doubt their talent and their ability to ride a MotoGP bike fast and race it well. That is in there. Now it's down to how much they can access it, how to deal with the pressure of actually having some proper expectation in the years to come, as they're not rookies anymore. So yeah, we've got a zillion races left this season. That's long enough for them to show something really tangibly consistent, I hope.
I don't think it's unrealistic that Aldeguer doesn't win a race this year.
Like, as in realistic that he might win?
Yeah.
Okay.
Phillip Island.
Sure. Yeah, there's
somewhere like that where he's really quick, where it's a bit of an open field.
Yeah.
None of that's unrealistic. Like that is, the level is there. Whenever he doesn't make the silly mistakes, the level is super, super high. Like, it is consistently podium level, and then he self-sabotages. But if he can
qualify good.
He needs to qualify a little bit better, but I don't think it's substantially better.
I would say it's a fair bit.
And also,
he's had a few good ones, hasn't he?
Yeah,
he's not been like consistently dropping out in Q1 and stuff. But
I think that more depends on the Ducati than on Aldeguer over a single lap himself. If you trace the gaps weekend to weekend, it feels fairly consistent in the, I would say, 6/10 range to mark. For me, that would be the impression. 6/10 is a bit too much for me. I don't think it shouldn't be consistently 6/10. It can be 6/10, that's fine, but it shouldn't. You should have a weekend where it's like a couple, and we're not really there yet.
I get that, but if it's a case of Ducati having stronger weekends relative to the opposition, still meaning that he can have that 6/10 gap and be quite high up the grid, we're going to have those races at times in the rest of the season, and he can win. I don't see why he can't win one of those races in probably some crazy circumstances, probably with Mark in party mode, maybe with Alex in party mode too. But yeah, I can see it happening. Also, I feel like I've seen enough to know, we talk about the comparison to Alex right now, I feel like we've seen enough to know that Aldeguer in the 5th year of his MotoGP career will be a better prospect than Alex is in the 5th year of his MotoGP career right now. I think the raw talent is high.
I mean, you put him on the Honda for 4 years or whatever, and then maybe not.
Yeah,
I think that's harsh on Alex.
Yeah.
Who kind of, not because, and again, it's harsh on Alex in the same that right now Alex has the best bike on the MotoGP grid, but it's, you mentioned that thing about us knowing everything there is to know about most riders, and I think that's probably true, but at the same time, there's always the unknowns that do exist. What would happen if Alex Marquez suddenly got the best bike on the grid? Well, it turns out really good things would happen.
Yeah.
What would happen if Franco Morbidelli got the best bike on the grid? Well, it turns out not as good things, but still, pretty good things, but not amazing things, etc., etc., etc. There's, I think, for a lot of those guys, the answers to those questions might not be what we think they are, which, we can't run this experiment a million times over and see, like, what's Somkya Chantra going to do in a factory Ducati? I mean, I'd love to know, genuinely. That sounds like a very fun question to me, but I haven't the foggiest idea.
I'm not sure it'd be that impressive, sadly.
Probably not, but
I mean, I've kind of hinted before that my wish list for the MotoGP's future is a mandatory season on Grassini running a year-old version of the best bike on the grid for everybody.
for everybody, yeah.
Everyone should have that. Just to go, okay, that's where you stand. Now we know.
Is it all of them at the same time, or is it them taking turns on
turns? So it just has to
like
happen
an F1 rookies test. Everyone gets a round.
Yeah, maybe every 3 or 4 rounds. There's enough races. We can do it all in the season. Yeah. That'll be fine. Yeah.
I like the idea of a single make series that is just Grassini.
Just Grassini.
for every rider.
Yeah, just Frankie Carcetti and a bunch of GP24s, and let's just get on with it.
Frankie'd enjoy that, I think.
Is running around between debriefs, 5 minutes for this debrief, 5 minutes for this debrief.
So that is exactly what World WCR is like.
One press officer who just runs back and gets a rider every 5 minutes to bring him into the media center. System.
Simon, run this idea past Frankie. I doubt he'll tell you on the record, but I'll be
he'll come and find me if he's listening to this, which he normally does. Completely unrelated, but this is like the sort of random fact I don't ever get the chance to throw out in a podcast. But you mentioned Mark in party mode. And Alex Rins had a spare button on his Suzuki Dash that they set up as a party mode that he could push in a slow and down lap, and it switched off all the anti-wheelie and anti-skid so that he could cool. So that he could show off in the slow and down lap.
Maybe that was what he was looking for on his bicycle when he went into that van. Anyway, retro. Chance of Eldiger and Agura showing what they really, really are. I think 80%. In the rest of the season. This is an optimistic podcast. I like exciting new talent. I've dismissed the class of 2019 to 2021 as like having shown what they've got. Yeah, let's see something really good from Agura and Eldiger. They've got it in them.
Class of 2019, by the way, the best MotoGP rookie class potentially ever. So
that's your column you can write after that one when you say Valentino Rossi wasn't very good.
I'm pretty sure you might have done. For the listeners' benefit, Fabio Quartararo, Pecco Bagnaia, Joan Mir, and Miguel Oliveira.
It's pretty
decent, isn't it?
It's pretty good.
Simon, your final wish. Well, you've got reserve wishes, which will rattle through. You get like 2 seconds each on them. But your final wish, we're going to talk about properly.
Well, I don't really have a reserve because I realized that I can cheat and combine my 2 other candidates into one. So I'm going to do it that way and just say that I really, really hope that both Jorge Martin and Pecco Bagnaia find their mojo at some point in the next 8 races for the good of the championship, for the benefit of 2026 being closer, for my own sanity as I try to find more ways to write about Marc Marquez winning races. As the Dorna graphics team struggle to find more pictures of Marc to use in winning posters. Just for the good of everything, I hope that those 2 are back at the sharp end again. I think with Martin, it's more of a sure thing, because the Aprilia looks pretty good at the minute and he just needs a bit of time on it, but he's already come back pretty strong. And you have to think like by the end of the year, he's going to be there at least once or twice. And then that bodes well for 26 and an actual strong season now that he's finally admitted that his best career option is probably to stay with them.
The one he chose in the first place.
That one.
The ridiculous thing about this comparison, though, is as soon as you said that, I straight away had the same thought of, Martin probably will. I don't know about Pecco, which is completely crazy to think that the guy who stayed in the best team on the grid that he's been with for forever has less chance of having a stronger end to the season than the guy who has broken most bones in his body a couple of times and his lungs and tried to leave his team quite abruptly and stayed after all slightly against his will maybe, and hasn't got the best bike on the grid and has missed most of the season, has a better chance of having a personal performance-wise relatively strong ends than captain stability Bagnaia.
I disagree. I don't think that's unusual at all. I think if you put Marc Marquez on the other Aprilia next to Jorge Martin, Martin will try to sign for BMW Superbike at the end of it. Nobody wants that.
Okay,
that's the only thing. I'm kind of a broken record on this, and annoyingly so, but that's the thing. There's no escaping it. It's inevitable. That's what has come for Pecco Bagnaia this season. We all kind of expected it, and we all know it, and there is no fixing it. There is nothing you can do. You just accept it, and you try to wait it out. That's the only thing. I don't know. The big boss has arrived, and you have to wait him out.
We saw this week, didn't we, that Ducati guys have been at Balaton Park doing some superbike testing, like on their stock machines, with very interesting quotes about the standard of the circuit. But you have to think that every opportunity that they're together now in those kind of informal situations, Pecco is just casually being like, so if you ask Gigi if you should try the GP24 at some point, like, hey, Mark, what has Alex said about how great the GP24 is? Like, oh, that GP24 looks like it would be a better fit for you, Mark. Just doing everything possible to get Mark to convince Gigi to revert back for next season to that bike. Because the GP25 in Pecco isn't going to work.
No.
Unless something radically changes.
I think he should do something different then. I think he should be like, hey, Mark, I've seen Jorge's Honda offer. It's like he's got more zeros than I've ever seen. Maybe you wanna talk to them again. I have their number right here.
Yeah, and then during that conversation, Joan Mir high sides past both their heads because it's still a Honda at the moment. So. Yeah, although I think we're not going down this tangent this week, but the fairy tale of Mark going back to Honda, I think the chance of that increases more as Ducati, as he just ticks off every single milestone he possibly could with Ducati than actually as Honda improves. I think, yes, Honda has to not be a complete shambles for him to go back there one day, but when there's almost the last thing left to prove to complete the circle is to rejoin Honda, have the romantic end, and
I think the Ducati dominance is almost making it inevitable that he goes back to Honda.
It's almost going too well for that.
It is. We've used the analogy before, but it's like he's playing in easy mode, and I don't think he enjoys that particularly, even though it's nice to be winning and stuff.
I think if it went terribly, he retires. If it went medium, he sticks around for quite a while. But the better it goes, the more you're like,
yeah. And if he wins 2 titles, which he's probably going to do, then he beats Valentino Rossi's record. And going back to Honda is the ultimate, then that becomes the ultimate stamp of Marc Marquez is the GOAT. If he goes back to Honda and wins another one, then I think that makes that argument for us to an extent that I'm not comfortable doing right now. He really is the greatest of all time at that point.
What if he goes to BMW World Superbike, as we've talked about?
You say that, but by that point, Aaron Canette's going to be a double world champion on it.
Yeah.
So you're not going to want him.
Good cyclical somehow wrap up. I think on the Mark topic and the retirement thing, it just reminded me when we did the Mark Marquez hypotheticals in the episode the other week. I thought we did so well to not spend like 10 seconds going, he wins everything, to answer every question, and then just moved on. We got a good hour of conversation out of that. But so many of the questions that put him on Ducati at different times, we went down the path of he wouldn't be racing now because he'd done everything he needed to and ticked everything off and be done. And I think that is one of the likely conclusions of this season. He'll either retire sooner or get off the Ducati sooner just to keep himself interested, which is probably good news for Pecco Bagnaia in terms of that relationship is strong enough that he may well still be at Ducati by then.
Pecco will be.
Yeah. What will his standing be at that point?
Pecco will be at Ducati until he wins another title for them at the bare minimum, I think.
This is good. We're going down the 2030 predictions line now. I like this.
Do you want my reserve?
I'd love to have your reserve. Before I was about to just like throw in that I think Ducati's next world champion will be Firmin Aldiger because I've just gone full Aldiger Val style nuts. But Val, what is your reserve wish?
No GP26. Let's not do this. Let's just have everybody on the GP24s next year and see how much the others can catch up and whether that gives us a good season. No GP26. I know Gigi's, I'm sure, has done a lot of work, but let's brick all those computers, I guess. Sorry, Gigi. Thanks for your usual effort, but we kind of need this current trend of convergence to continue. And I'm afraid that if Gigi Dall'Igna gets a redo on the 25, like a proper fix, I know that the engine spec is more or less frozen, but clearly you can do stuff around that and stuff that impacts the performance quite significantly. So let's not do any of that. Let's just keep it. Let's just keep it what it is.
There's one problem with that, and that is if you tell Gigi Dall'Igna he's not allowed to do any work in the GP26, then the GP27 is going to be top. Like they're going to be 6 bikes in the top of the championship by 400 points.
That's 2027 Val's problem.
Yeah, fair.
It's kicking that can right down the road.
2027 optimist Matt goes, at least a few other teams have thought kind of that way. You know, Honda, you'd hope.
Honda seem to be the one that's thinking that way the most.
Yeah. I'm more worried for obviously worried for KTM because all the reasons you'd be worried for KTM. I'm maybe slightly worried for Aprilia in terms of, obviously, they're trying to make this bike quicker at the moment as well and save this season.
Yeah,
I worry about how a team of that resource is getting ready for 27 at the same
I think
time. Perhaps,
KTM are probably in quite a good spot because they've been in a development freeze, not through choice.
Yeah.
But genuinely, it means that actually things are probably kind of more focused on 27 internally anyway, because you would imagine as soon as they realized that there was no money to do any work on this year's bike, that they were kind of telling themselves, right, let's just concentrate on 27.
Yeah.
So they're probably not in a terrible position, and now there is money again.
They've kind of been forced to punt this regulation change a little, the regulation cycle a little bit, or at least should have been.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I've enjoyed how much this end of 2025 conversation has also covered the early 2030s, the 2027 regulations, and reassessing performances of the 2011 and 2012 seasons.
We can do a review of Blade Runner 2049 or something. Even further.
I don't even know what that is. Let's end this podcast then.
I have one more wish list for the year. I really want a couple of proper, not nonsense flag to flag, proper wet races. Because they've been we've had a few good entertaining ones, like hints at ones this year. I'd like a proper wet race or two, just for my own benefit.
Yeah,
like Motegi for it to rain start to finish.
That seems fair.
Yeah.
I can't promise weather, so I'm not going to put a percentage on that. Percentage on Pecco and Martin getting it together. 40 for Pecco, 80 for Martin, I reckon. Right. Race Members Club, Patreon comments, deluge us with your wishes for the rest of the season. We'll reply to a few on there, and then we'll see how all these turn out and our wishes as well at the end of the year, and probably look back with great sadness or be celebrating an Aldigo victory sweep to end the season.